Hello and welcome to From the BLN, the Burnley podcast. This episode, we're going to be looking ahead to this weekend's must-win. Is it a must-win? Vincent Kompany, in his press conference earlier this week, said every game was a must-win in the last few weeks, but it does feel like it's must-win, even though the trapdoor of relegation looms large. Slightly depleted squad, a bit like the Burnley and Sheffield United squads, but we have got Simon Evans and Paul Woodhouse with me. I'm Andrew Greaves. So let's kick on. Let's have a look ahead to the battle at Bramall Lane. Woody, Sheffield United, the only team worse than us, statistically, in this league. Allegedly, bottom of the Premier League. We smashed them last time out. We thought that might be a bit of a turning point. The positivity keeps bubbling every now and again when we get a positive result, but it really does feel like the fat lady might be willing to enter the stage if we don't get a win on Saturday, doesn't it?
Yes. In fact, I don't think what it'll be like on Sunday should we get a stuffing off Sheffield United. It's even though in the broader scheme of things, it might not make a heck of a lot of difference. It'd make quite a lot of difference, I think, all round, just to be able to put in a decent performance, a marker, at least still keep us in with a shout. And we know we should be going there and beating them quite reasonably handsomely. I don't think it'll be a rout of any description, but they seem to be our whipping boys of late, and that's probably about the best we can take from it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And Simon, Craig Bellamy might no longer believe in rainbows. I don't know if you saw that comment, but he does believe that we will stay up, which I find slightly strange. That you don't believe in something that actually exists and is actually tangible, but you do believe in something that seems completely untangible, like survival. But there is still a belief within the staff, at least, and the players, at least publicly, that we could still drag ourselves away from this mess.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, that we're in the position where we're still in it. You know, mathematically, we're not relegated yet. It feels like we've been virtually down for months, doesn't it? But here we are. That 6-point gap. Anything can happen in the last few weeks of the season. So it's not out of the question. It's pretty much game over if we can't beat Sheffield United, I think. But yeah, they've got to believe, haven't they? I mean, we certainly don't, looking at it in negative fashion, we certainly don't want to be finishing bottom of the league. And this is a game. But then, you look at the fixtures we've got coming up afterwards. United away, it's a funny one, isn't it? They seem to be on the edge of meltdown. Newcastle, Spurs, and then Forest. So, there's not a huge, optimism around the Newcastle and Spurs game, I wouldn't have thought. But if we can somehow end up in a situation where that home game against Forest is meaningful and means something, then you never know. I still can't believe that we're even discussing this because it's been so bad. And, the universal consensus amongst people is that the season has been a write-off, a disaster. And yet, here we are 6 points away from safety with a handful of games left to go.
Yeah. And Woody, that does make the kind of the frustration we felt, and I'm sure it's come across in the debriefs we've done, but the frustration we felt over the last few games where we've had missed opportunities, probably, against Wolves, definitely, throwing away points at Everton and at home I'm trying to think who we were up against last time out. Brighton, there we go. One of the Bs. I was fumbling around for Brentford or Bournemouth, but yeah, Brighton. That makes it even more frustrating, doesn't it? Actually, we are still only 6 points off safety, and we've thrown points away. And conceivably, that 6 points could have been 2 points with the extra points we could have picked up in those last two games. But we've kind of got to just put that out of our mind, haven't we? And kind of say, right, you know what? We've just got to battle and play whatever's in front of us and pick up whatever points there are remaining between now and that Forest game to see if we've got a chance on that last day.
Exactly. And weirder things have happened. They really have. I mean, we normally see every single season one side at least sneak out there. And Luton are doing a slightly better job of it than us, but they're obviously on the slide because they've got quite a few injuries. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that there is a humdinger to be had at last game of the season at home. And as we've said, we felt like we've been down for the vast majority of this season. To get to that point would seem quite bizarre. The cognitive dissonance is quite real, isn't it? And it would be more than a minor miracle, considering. But there's always a little bit of hope, always a little bit. But we'll see.
Is it a shaft of light or a glimmer we're going with?
Oh, good Lord. The spectrum of shaft versus glimmer. Maybe a wee twinkle.
Well, I think shaft of light is one of those things that journalists use only in print and never verbalise. So I think we should go with shaft of light. I think that's the way to go. But
it is definitely in that list of words. I've got a friend over here who works for one of Britain's best known tabloid newspapers, and he's very good over a pint or two of just switching into newspaper talk. And it's quite amusing when he's poised to go to the bar and set to order his food.
Yeah,
and if he tells you that something happened yesterday, he said last night somebody roared or blasted. You could go on all day with it.
Journalistic speak, absolutely. Now, Opta, Simon, had us as 99% chance of going down just a couple of weeks ago. But what I want to focus on is something Vincent Kompany said in his press conference this week, and I think it's a point he's made a couple of times over the last fortnight or so. But it is the fact that we have been in games, haven't we? The start of the season, he said this week, look, first 9 or 10 matches, teams were getting away from us, and they were, we were conceding one goal, then again quickly, and we were getting away from, teams were getting out of sight. But one of the things we can take, if we are going to look at positives, now come on to individual performances in a second, but there is something in that, isn't there? The fact that we've been in games, and I know we've kind of thrown games away by conceding, having gone ahead, and I think we talked last week when you weren't here about us dropping 25 points from winning positions. But it is right that actually there is a feeling that we've become acclimatized to a degree to what's required at Premier League level, isn't there?
Yeah, I think, defensively, it's a lot more solid, isn't it, than it was in the first half of the season. I think the arrival of Esteves had a big part in that. He's just brought some nous and some solidity to the centre of defence. And I think Assignon's helped out as well, really. I don't think everyone's convinced about him yet as a player, but I think he has helped in that. The midfields look to have a more sort of solid shape to it. And the problem's entirely really been, two problems. Gifting these goals that aren't part of the solidity of the shape. They're just like, these random factors that come into games where we give the ball away, goalkeeping errors and so on. And then just not being enough of a threat going forward. I mean, the attacking stats against Brighton were abysmal, weren't they? We just didn't threaten their goal enough. And that's been the story. It was the same at Everton. It's been the story through a lot of these games through this spell. And you're just not going to win games in the Premier League if you're not creating those chances. Especially, we don't have strikers who, if we create one chance a game, are going to put it away. No. So we have to create a few. And we just haven't been doing it at that end of the field at all. So it seems like, yes, we've acclimatized to sort of having a better shape and a better structure, not being played through constantly like we were in the early part of the season. I mean, I shudder to think if there's any sort of dull moments this summer, if we go back and start looking at some of those first 5 or 6 games, those games against Villa at home and Spurs, where it felt like they could just score at will. I mean, the game Maddison had at Turf Moor, where he just strolled around and did what he wanted, didn't he? So, you look at that and think, yeah, definitely there has been progress. We have acclimatized in that sense, but we're just not good enough in the final third, which raises the question, is he getting the best out of the options he's got in that attacking third? And I think, from the discussion there was over the weekend, there's certainly some questions about that.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, Simon mentioned the attacking stats against Brighton. You think we probably had 3 of the game's biggest opportunities, Fofana's header wide, Fofana's miss from, inside the 6-yard box, and Brun Larsen. And not once did we trouble Verbruggen, did we? I mean, none of them were shots on targets. We've not forced keepers enough into those saves. And I just wonder kind of, all of them chances came about because we had Odegaard out wide, which is, where we want him. But what is the solution? Because, we brought Jay on and Jay, perhaps plays a slightly different game these days because of his advancing years. We really struggle to see where the solution is. And like Simon says, is it a case of not getting the best out of the options he's got? So is more work needed there? Or is there another option lurking somewhere within that squad that you can see?
We're going to find out on Saturday, aren't we? Because there will be another option as he tinkers away. We've said before that we seem to get certain things right. Then it's like, oh, well, we'll just tweak it a little bit again. And that thing that worked previously, let's just mess around with it a little bit, then it no longer works. The weird thing is like, we're obviously creating more chances, but aren't finishing as well as when we weren't creating as many chances, which would tend to think that even though Vinny's saying that, Foster's playing in the same position, he quite patently isn't. And it's like, why do you keep breaking stuff that seemed partially fixed? And I don't know why he keeps doing it. It seems like he's got too much of a Pep mindset. It's bloody great if you're Man City and can dick around doing this with 120 million players, but our entire squad costs that amount, and we don't have that luxury to dick about like City messes about. And even some of the best players in the world, in the best club side in the world, struggle with some of the things that Pep's trying to mess around with. So God knows what a lot of young kids in their first foray into Premier League life are actually thinking if they're, having the same kind of shit thrown at them day in, day out. I can imagine it's quite overwhelming that you're trying to find, your place within a club in a division that's extremely difficult in and of itself if you're an accomplished player, let alone it's your first season in English football. And you just constantly being bombarded with different ideas, different positions, being expected to play and do all this kind of stuff. And it's quite apparent that it's not working. So what the devil will do on Saturday, as we say every week, is only known to Vinny, and probably not until Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Woody. I think if you look at the players that Guardiola has done that with, I often think of Bernardo Silva, who is a player who Pep has played in so many different positions, false nine as well as, wide right, wide left, central midfield. He's pretty much played him everywhere outside of the back four. And Bernardo Silva can do it because he's got a skill set. He's able to deliver wherever he puts him. We don't have players like that. I can't think of any of our players who you could successfully move into a deeper role or a central role without losing what makes them effective. And we've seen that with Odegaard, who looked effective out wide and then hasn't been effective at number 10. Perhaps the only player who's been able to sort of adjust well into different roles is Sander Berge, who's actually done all right at centre half when he's had to do that, and can play at number 10 or deeper and different roles in the midfield. But I would like to see Benson given a go on Saturday. Yeah. I really would, because that's a player. It's a championship match, effectively. 2 championship level teams. Yeah. He's proven that he can do it at championship level. I think Sheffield United would be very worried with what they know from last season. They lined up and they had to be backpedaling against Manuel Benson.
If only Bernardo Silva could take a penalty, though.
Yeah, pretty poor penalty, wasn't it, in the Champions League on Wednesday night? But yeah, I agree, Simon. I think Benson is, it's set up for Benson. I think Brun Larsen's been decent, but I think he's one of those players that he's probably due a rest. Let's not forget, before he came to us, he's not played a lot of football over the 2 previous years. I think he's up. I think he's a really fit lad. I think he's really got himself into, good fitness and things. But I just wonder whether Benson on one wing, Odegaard on the other wing, 2 strikers. Let's not faff about with it. Let's have, one behind the other if you really want, drop Fofana behind Foster, drop Foster behind Fofana, whatever. But I think go with two
or
wingers.
just one striker, not going all out at Sheffield United. Play the three in midfield, play two wingers and Foster down the middle.
Yeah.
I don't think Fofana's been playing so well that he's undroppable.
No, I 100% agree, and I think I may have even dropped him for the Brighton game, if I'm being really honest. One player who might come back into contention, although probably not, despite his wry smile, not for Sheffield United, is Luca Koleosho. Now, again, it's something we've whinged about quite a bit on this podcast, is the lack of information we get around injuries, and people always say to us, well, why do you need to know about injuries? Well, I think part of the problem is 1 week you've got a manager saying a player is doing well and getting close, and now, a player is looking like he might be out for the season, Jordan Bayer. So, Vincent Kompany revealed in his press conference this week that Amin Al-Dakhil and Jordan Bayer were probably going to be out for the season, barring a minor miracle. But he did say that it was looking more positive for Luca Koleosho. Now, Woody, we were all very, very excited by the impact that Koleosho had before he went off with what initially looked like a fairly innocuous injury. Getting him back for this little run of games leading up to the end of the season, whether it's us just building momentum ahead of next season in the Championship, or it is that, miracle on Harry Potts way that we're all praying for, that would give us a real boost, wouldn't it?
It would. But I wouldn't like us to rush him back.
Yeah.
And also, with regards to the likes of your Fofanas, he's not going to be part of our long-term plan, is he? So we know pretty much that he's not going to be here next season. We've probably got an handful of games left. It's become an issue between him and Foster, who should be up front. And it makes a lot more sense to at least certain positions, at least plan for the next season.
What's this long-term plan you're talking about?
Oh, God, I do apologise. Yeah.
Do we have one? I didn't know.
We call it a project, though. We don't call it a plan. We call it a project, don't we?
Yeah, any time in the next 3 years. Yeah.
I don't. What's going to happen if we do stay up? I mean, that's the thing that's going through my mind.
And going down. Yeah.
I mean, if they stay up, like they can't. There's no fire sale. Then we have to keep this squad together and improve on it. I mean, it's a completely different situation, isn't it?
I mean, that's an interesting point, though, isn't it? I mean, I mean, is it not built for us to survive and then these players thrive next season? You know what I mean? Was that not the plan? And I know we joke about the plan and the projects and things, but I think you make a really good point there, Simon, in terms of what happens if we survive. And I know we're kind of getting a bit giddy, and a bit ahead of ourselves. But if we were to survive, was this year's plan not to develop those players to a degree that actually, if we, this year is all about survival. It doesn't matter how you survive, goal difference, going in off the referee's arse on the last day of the season, whatever. But then next season, this squad is going to be ready for the rigors of the Premier League because they've had a year developing. Is that not the plan, Simon? It kind of, that appears to have been the message all along. Mixed.
I mean, it may be. I mean, I'm not convinced this squad will be, better and raring to go next season and going to get to be any different than it was this year. But I don't know. I mean, another interesting question is, do the fans do? I mean, I talk to people; they're quite looking forward to being in the Championship next season. I mean, I know no one is going to hold their hand up and say, "I hope we go down." But there's an awful lot of people going, "Oh, well, it'll be different next year. We'll be winning. We'll be winning every other week or every week, and we'll enjoy that." And Vincent becomes a great manager again when we drop down a division, and all these magical things are going to happen, and it's going to be great. And no VAR and local derbies and all that kind of stuff. We won't have as many away fans in the home section and all the rest of it.
We'll have as many home fans in the home section either, will we? That's
probably not. But I just wonder, I don't think anyone would say they don't want us to stay up, and we'll all be celebrating if they do manage to stay up. But I think that some people will have mixed feelings about it, Well,
let's put him on the spot then, Woody. If I give you a magic button to press and we stay up on goal difference, perhaps. Well, let's not say goal difference. Let's not get too ridiculous. That's almost saying you don't believe in
no chance of that. Yeah.
If we stay up by a point and survive and start the Premier League season next year, would you prefer that, or would you prefer dropping down, perhaps taking the Championship by storm again, rebuilding and coming back?
You're going to take the Premier League.
You've got to, haven't you?
Yeah, purely and simply for the fact that I'm more worried of the existential threat of going down, than I am of the abject shite next season will be of, this kind of nonsense again. But I would like to think that Vinny and everybody may have learned a thing or two this season, and he may buy a fullback. That's my one vain hope for him, that he's learnt enough this season to at least plug some of the holes, etc., and we could make a better fist of it. Because if we are fair and just have a look and start picking apart the season when it comes to the end of the season, we will be able to say that those fine margins, if they had gone slightly differently, we could be a little bit more in Wolves' position than our current position if things had have turned around. And we haven't been absolutely miles off. We've been somewhere near the races, and with a little bit of, like we said before, a few different VAR decisions and better finishing and not so many mistakes, we have a completely different season. We really do. And so I would like us to have another crack at the Premier League, but it'd be infinitely more fun down in the Championship. Infinitely more fun.
If we can watch it. They haven't done a TV deal for North America yet for the EFL.
Have they not?
Next season. No, so we might be in an interesting situation there. But no, I'm sure they will do eventually. But it's not. ESPN's contract is up, so relevant sports who've been making headlines a bit, trying to get games from foreign leagues to be allowed to be played in the United States. They've had a big law case going on, which FIFA sort of backed down in their favour this week. They're the ones who've got the rights to the AFL. So I do wonder. There was a little story this week as well in the Athletic, an interview with the Orient's owner, where he was saying some silly things about how young kids in America are chomping at the bit to watch the AFL more than the Premier League, which is which is a bit nonsense. Yeah. But the interesting thing about it is, I do wonder if we won't see. If that situation changes where you are allowed to bring games over here, I do wonder if the AFL wouldn't, more than the Premier League, wouldn't try and come over and play some games because they get less pushback than the Premier League. Whether we'd see an East Lancashire derby played in Boston or something like that. But you could see Wrexham playing a couple of league games over here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if all these kids, these childhood Orient fans are going about Burnley 87 or something like that in terms of hashtags and all that lot. But I did read that it's a bit kind of a bit very typical kind of American owner without a clue of how the world really works.
He's English based over here. He's made his money over here, I think. But I think his background is English. I think.
Is it?
I think so.
There's absolutely no reason for the stupidity then, but yeah, certainly an expanded Championship, an EFL deal, TV rights over this side of the water, with more games, which actually means there's going to be less 3:00 kickoffs because, of course, the blackout on 3:00 kickoff, so 2:50 to 5:30, whatever the rules are, is still in place. So, but yeah, new deal announced this week by the Football League in terms of their deal with Sky. So yeah, maybe the longing for Saturday 3:00 kickoffs and 7:45s on a Tuesday might not be. We might not get exactly what we want on that deal. Just got a couple of other bits before we wrap up. Sorry, Sam, go on.
Well, I was going to say, JJ Watt made a comment on one of his interviews recently that we've been planning for both scenarios. We're not naive. We've been planning for both scenarios. But I do wonder which one have they been planning for the most. Because when people say, "Oh, we're going to work on two possible scenarios," they always work on one more than the other, really, don't they?
Yeah.
And I just think they've probably been working on the basis that we're going to be in the Championship a bit more, and it would be a nice problem to have, wouldn't it? But this, because they'll suddenly look at the financial projections and go, "Oh, there's 140 million there now from TV." So it won't be too much of a problem for them, but it might cause some scurrying around and rethinking if we do manage to somehow pull this off. But as you said, Greavesy, we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, worrying about what happens when we stay up.
Yeah, I'm just slightly worried about how stupid this is all going to sound on Monday morning when the debrief comes out. And
we usually do, don't we?
Chris and Justin are hauling us over the coals for jinxing it and saying there's never been a better time to play Sheffield United and 4-1 predictions and stuff like that.
We've got to keep doing it, haven't we? We've got to get to end of season with, making fools of ourselves every week.
Of course we have. That's right. With a Burnley podcast that doesn't take itself too seriously, and really looking at the fivers, we can't really take ourselves too seriously, can we? But one thing that did cause a bit of, let's say, raised eyebrows was the club tweeted a picture on Wednesday of a certain Mr. Usain Bolt at the training ground with a kind of a very cryptic message of "nice to see you at the training ground, Usain Bolt." Now, we wondered whether this was another one of these kind of wild new investors, and I think we are going to probably convene to do a bit of a special on a raft of new investors who we've found out about over the last few days or so, mainly based in the Far East and mainly based in the fashion and kind of influencer industry. So maybe we'll pick that up as another midweek special after the success of the last one. But it turns out that actually Usain Bolt's visit, Simon, was less glamorous and less exciting than we initially thought, because I think we all kind of had a bit of a nudge. Is this the latest ALK masterstroke? But it turns out he's not here for an investment purpose, is he?
No, he's mates with Ricardo Gardner, the Jamaican player whose son was playing for Stockport County under-21s at Gawthorpe. So he went along to watch his mate's lad play at Gawthorpe, basically. That's it. But yes, didn't stop the club from putting out a cryptic tweet. And, you've got to say this is a sign of just, the progress we've made under ALK Capital, that the mere presence of one of the most famous athletes in the history of the world at Turf Moor. And we presume that ALK Capital have persuaded him to be an investor. So that's just how far we've come.
That's it. I think it was just the thought of walking out and getting the applause from an adoring crowd, waving lots of Burnley FC official club shop endorsed flags, and being able to do the lightning bolt and things like that. But
I think the merchandise ops with them lightning bolts, like
God, and
flags with lightning bolt on it.
No sticks allowed, only official flags only. But yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because I think he was at Blackburn Rovers training ground last year. I think he was at Brockholes last year watching a game. That seemed to make quite a lot of headlines, and he went out for a meal. But you do wonder what he's doing in the Northwest, don't you? In that kind of, I presume he's over for a Man United game because he's a big Man United fan. But Woody, I mean, there's no harm, is there, in having these people around the club, and he could have told Burnley to, sod off and not have a picture next to the Legs, Hearts and Minds sign at the training ground. But it is, it at least kind of, keeps us in people's minds, doesn't it? And following on from JJ being on Stick to Football and things, it's from a PR point of view, there's nothing wrong with a bit of, cryptic messages and speculation, is there?
Especially when you're avoiding talking about your accounts. Yeah.
You have to bring that up, Woody.
Sorry, I apologise.
So negative at times, isn't he, Sam? He's so bloody negative when we're trying to be positive about ALK. And
although I'd like to see him in a straight line versus Koleosho in these days. I'd like to see who's quicker than Usain.
Now that would be some viral content.
There you go. If they'd have done that, get us on.
Dude perfect in the third lane.
Half-time entertainment. It's got to be better than the shit they serve up most weeks, isn't it?
It's a bit of a loose end these days, as you're saying, I think.
Yeah.
He is. He reminds me of, it's almost a bit like, when in The Office where David Brent just keeps turning up at the office. It's kind of like he's just turning up at random Northwest football clubs because he's a bit bored of retirement.
Exactly.
He was on my flight back from Vegas after the F1 race over there. So he'd gone over there doing the sort of celebrity in the paddock thing.
Was he in economy or were you in first class, Simon?
That's
what everybody wants.
I was flying on one of those airlines that doesn't have such distinctions.
So economy then.
America's version of an Ryanair.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Final bit that before we go, I said Usain Bolt was going to be the final bit, but more stuff that came out from the press conference. Apparently, Josh Brownhill was not out of contract in the summer. We knew he was out of contract in the summer, but there was an option there to extend, and I think it's sensible for the club to extend Brownhill's contract. Whether we're planning for him to be part of the squad in the Championship, but also because there are a few clubs sniffing around. I saw this week, I think it was Fulham, Wolves and Bournemouth sniffing around Brownhill, and you don't want him to leave for no. He has been a good servant. I know I've kind of been critical of him at times this year.
Is that what you're saying? Is it? You slaughtered him constantly.
Eating a bit of humble pie.
Hugely unfairly, in my opinion.
Hugely unfairly. But again, we found out that he has signed a contract. So there is clearly planning going on, isn't there, in terms of, protecting your assets. And, if you can get £4 million for Josh Brownhill, you've kind of made back your investment, Woody, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we would be doing more than admonishing them if we were just allowed to go on a free. And like you say, if there's £4 million to be had and he moves on, best of luck to the fella. But he would obviously, in the Championship, be a fantastic asset.
I think he's an asset in the Premier League, to be honest. I do.
I think that's fair as well.
Part of a squad, I'm not saying, you can be a guaranteed starter every week if we stayed up and strengthened for next season, but I think I think he had a bad run of form and the Greaves' criticism wasn't totally unfair, but I still think there's a use for a player like Josh Brownhill in this squad.
And he's in Burnley as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think I was slightly overcritical of him at times, but there's part of me would like to see him. I mean, Sammy, you mentioned going 3 in midfield and Lyle Foster through the middle. He is almost the third cog, isn't he? And we've not really seen a proper midfield three of Cullen, Berger and Brownhill, have we? Because even on Saturday when Brownhill came on, got us the goal, Berger had moved to centre half then. But yeah, I just wonder. I was just having a look on Transfermarkt to see how much we paid for him. We paid £10 million for him, according to that, and that was obviously a bit ago in 2020. No, it wasn't. Was it? Surely we signed him before 2020, do we not?
Yeah, we did. We're not around about 2018, 2017 or something.
2017, I do beg your pardon. 2016, 17, there you go. Yeah, it's just the way Transfermarkt is set up. But interestingly, and I did not know this, further information, eligible for Malaysia through his grandmother from his mother's side.
Oh, that could be like an Ashley Barnes Austria thing.
I just honestly just had a quick look there. So, but yeah, Warrington born, so knows the Northwest well. But I do wonder whether we just stop fanning about, play midfield three for the last 5 games of the season, see what we can get up points.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what approach he takes to some of the the old guard in the squad as well, because nearly all of them are out of contract at the end of the season, aren't they? So we're going to. Will we try and get something out of? Is Goodmanson out of contract? I think he is. I think
Goodmanson's got again another year's extension. He was a bit coy on Goodmanson, Jay, and Jack Cork and Charlie Taylor as well. I think is out of contract. So, but he did say, look, our focus is on Sheffield United, and everyone's a professional, and everyone's been fantastic. We've had conversations with some players, but the focus is on the last 5 games of the season. So. Interesting times. There's never a dull time. I mean, gone are the years when we were wondering which aging player from 2 or 3 transfer windows previous we were going to get on the last 2 days of the transfer window. The last couple of years we've had 30 odd players through the door, 15, 16 out as well. So, that's before we get on to likes of Scott Twine and Anas Sarori and Michael Obafemi, who are out on loan as well, isn't it?
Yeah, if the fans on the message boards are right as well, it seems to be this assumption because of Arfield and Westwood being in MLS that whoever of our older players is leaving the club this summer is automatically going to go to MLS. There's been rumours about Jay Rodriguez for quite a while in MLS, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him.
And Jack Cork as well, I think, has been rumoured to be.
I wouldn't be shocked to see J Rod, lining up alongside Pookie in attack for Minnesota United next year or something like that. But yeah, it's going to be weird to see them all go, and sad in a way, really, because I think some of them could have been used more in the last, certainly this season. 1 or 2 of them. I'd have liked to have seen at least a try of Jack Cork at some point. I mean, the presumption is, people say, well, his legs have gone. Well, we haven't seen a huge amount of evidence that Jack Cork's legs have gone.
No,
because we haven't seen him.
3 or 4.
Yeah, we just haven't seen him, have we? Yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 appearances in total. And again, in a midfield three, does that midfield three benefit A, from his experience, B, from his guile and his kind of nous, and actually can make up for the supposed legs have gone, which I think is a bit of a lazy kind of assumption that we just throw at players once they...
We're hearing it about Jay, that Jay's legs have gone, apparently. Well, he's not as fast as he was, obviously, but I wouldn't say his legs have gone. He's made some useful contributions off the bench. In fact, I'd be tempted, actually, at Sheffield United, if we were going to go with 2 wingers, I'd quite fancy having Jay middle to get on end of them.
Yeah, you do wonder them chances we squandered against Brighton, whether he's that kind of player that you would want him in them positions almost, wouldn't you? The header especially, you'd back him getting his head on a whipped.
Could have been our Glenn Murray, couldn't it? Maybe.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
We'll never know. But I suspect we'll have some episodes at the end of the year looking back on fondly on some careers that have come to an end, I think, at Turf Moor.
Yeah, definitely. All ifs, buts, and maybes, of course. Well, the only thing that's ever certain is that we will be back on Monday with an episode of the Debrief. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the game if you're going over to the Steel City or if you're catching it elsewhere. And we will see you again on Monday. Until then, enjoy the week and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Upton. Go.